In honor of my dad, I'd like to just share with you a little bit of the life and times of David Dykstra. Dad was born June 9th, 1927, to his parents Ilka and Corey Dykstra. He was their fifth child of what would be 5 boys and 2 girls. Born in Oosterschelde, Friesland, where he lived till he married and moved to Canada. Here he went to elementary school, helped around the house and farm. His father delivered milk cans to the local cheese factory, first by horse and wagon, and later in a flatbed truck. And this is where Dad learned to drive, sitting next to his father, watching his every move, even though his father would never let him drive. He joined the Army in 1947. His parents had to grant special permission because his 4 older brothers were already in the Army, which they did at once they realized how badly he wanted to go. He was later sent to fight in Indonesia. As a regular soldier, he drove truck in supply convoys. And what he learned sitting next to his father while making deliveries certainly paid off now. Dad told me the story of how, to test his driving skills, the Army would park a truck facing uphill, place a matchbox behind the rear wheel, and expect him to let out the clutch and drive forward without rolling back and crushing the box. Of course, he passed with flying colors. He returned home in 1950, and later that year went to a gymnastic display program on a Saturday evening with a couple of friends. There he would meet a pretty young lady who would later become his wife. Mom says they met during intermission, but she didn't give him much thought. After the show, she couldn't find her sweater and started to leave without it. Outside, there was Dad holding on to her missing sweater. He walked her home that evening, and Mom reluctantly agreed to see him the next evening. But their relationship blossomed, and they were engaged in April of 1952. They planned to immigrate to Canada after their wedding and started to get things in order. Married in July of '53, their immigration papers hadn't yet arrived. One day, Dad received a summons to appear in The Hague for an interview. Seemed he had to answer for a missing Army truck that went missing one night for a few hours in Indonesia. Dad and some of his friends borrowed the truck to blow off a little steam one evening. Of course, after everything was explained and cleared up, they had their immigration papers in order soon after. They sailed for Canada in September of 1953 and arrived by train in Bowmanville on October 1st. They lived in the King Street and Silver Street area of downtown, and their first son arrived during this time in June of '54. Later, Dad and Mom rented part of a house on Liberty Street South, but the property was soon sold and slated for demolition. A house on Wilson Road in Oshawa, briefly, and a house on Mill Lane in Bowmanville were brief stays until they finally settled into the second floor of a large Victorian home in Hampton. And this was where John was born in April of 1957. We lived here 3 years until Dad and Mom purchased a house at 33 Brown Street in Bowmanville and moved there in July of 1960. They needed a bigger backyard and more room because Mom was expecting Willem. He was born in September that same year. In this home we lived 9 years, and I remember Dad had his first garage and a workshop in the basement where many projects took shape and repairs were made to various household items. Dad refurbished a number of bicycles, wagons, and sleighs for his growing family. By 1969, Dad and Mom were looking for a house on one level and a little more modern. They moved to 79 Parkway Crescent in June that same year. It was here that Dad and Mom's 3 sons grew into young men and ventured out into the world on their own. In the spring of 1992, now retired and empty nesters They sold their home and hit the open road, living in a fifth-wheel trailer where they spent winters in the southern states and summers in Canada. They traveled like this for 7 years, until they took an apartment in Oshawa and later a home north of Barrie. Their final move came in 2003 when they took an apartment in Durham Homes. And Dad was diagnosed with dementia about 3 years later, and he spent the last year of his life in Sunnycrest Nursing Home. What I remember most about Dad is how he always worked to provide for his family. Mom said he would almost always find work, even if it meant going door to door or hitchhiking to Oshawa. Besides his 33 years in the motors, he would fix cars in his garage, help during the haying season, or pick apples. And of course, for us, he was always ready to fix a bicycle or help build a go-kart. If we outgrew one bike, he soon had another one being refurbished in his workshop. He enjoyed taking his family camping and was always finding creative ways to make it more convenient and fun. And he always enjoyed music, and later in life enjoyed singing in the choir. I have this image of my dad's feeble and broken body lying there on the bed in Sunnycrest that fateful day last week. And that evening, I wanted to tell Dinah that I was worried he had passed away alone. But the words wouldn't come out of my mouth. The Holy Spirit softly whispered to my heart, he wasn't alone. Today, I rest on that assurance and take comfort in the fact that he is in a better place. There is a song I heard recently called Is Not This the Land of Beulah? And it's something I can almost picture my father singing today. The first verse and chorus goes something like this. I can see far down the mountain where I wandered many years, often hindered on my journey by the ghosts of doubts and fears, broken vows and disappointments thickly strewn along the way, but the Spirit led unerring to the land I hold today. And the chorus is not this the land of Beulah? Blessed, blessed land of light, where the flowers bloom forever and the sun is always bright. The book of Psalms assures us that weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. And Dad, I know where to look for you. When we get to heaven, we'll follow the sounds of the choir.